Every summer, the whole neighborhood gathered for a big barbecue. Everyone was invited, except me. Then one night, a knock at my door changed everything I thought I knew. I used to tell myself it did not bother me. Every summer, like clockwork, the grills would fire up and the whole neighborhood would come alive. You could hear the clink of beer bottles and the crack of kids' laughter bouncing off the backyard fences. Someone always brought out a Bluetooth speaker, blasting the same classic rock playlist until the sun dipped low and the sky turned that golden orange you only get in August. And every year, I watched it unfold from the other side of the fence. I live on Oak Ridge Drive, one of those nice suburban neighborhoods with big yards, trimmed hedges, and people who wave just enough to not seem rude. The kind of place where everyone knows your name, or at least pretends they do. My house sits right at the end of the street, tucked between the Sanders place with the two golden retrievers and the Mitchells, who throw that massive 4th of July barbecue every single year. Everyone gets an invite to that barbecue. Everyone but me. At first, I thought it was an oversight. The first year I moved in, I figured the invite had gotten lost, or maybe they just forgot about the new guy. I even bought a bag of chips and a 6-pack, just in case someone knocked. Nobody did. The second year, I told myself I must have missed the invite. Maybe it was digital, some Facebook event I never saw, because I do not use social media much. I heard the music that time, smelled the ribs cooking, thick and sweet like molasses in the air, watched shadows dancing on the other side of the wooden fence while I sat inside, eating reheated pizza on a paper plate. By the third year, I stopped pretending. It was not a mistake. It was deliberate. I was the only one not invited. I would sit on my porch, pretending to read or tinker with something in the garage, but I could not drown out the laughter. The backyard was just feet away, and I could hear every word through the fence slats. Jokes. Inside stories. That easy rhythm people have when they are used to being accepted. And me? I just kept telling myself it did not matter. You do not need them, I would mutter, staring at the empty driveway. You are fine on your own. But the silence that followed each party said otherwise. There is a certain sting to being ignored that is sharper than outright rejection. When someone hates you, at least they acknowledge you exist. But being invisible? That gets under your skin. Makes you start to wonder what it is about you that makes people keep their distance. I never caused any trouble. I kept to myself, mowed the lawn, waved when I passed folks on the sidewalk. Some neighbors even waved back. So why was I always on the wrong side of that fence? This past summer made it impossible to ignore. I counted 32 people in the Mitchells' backyard. Cars lined both sides of the street. Someone had even rented a bounce house for the kids. I watched from my window, arms crossed, heart tight in my chest like I had swallowed a fist. Then I saw something that made my stomach twist. Mr. Garrison, the guy who moved in just 2 months ago, was laughing with the Mitchells, drink in hand, like he had been part of the block for years. They had welcomed him in like family. No hesitation. No invisible wall. Just not me. I turned away from the window. But something in me shifted that night. Because this time, I was not just hurt. I was angry. The funny thing is, I used to think I was doing everything right. I am not the type to barge into people's lives. I have always believed in giving folks space, earning trust, not forcing it. That is how I was raised. You show up, stay respectful, help out where you can. And sooner or later, people make room for you. But on Oak Ridge Drive, that door never opened. What made it worse were the little moments. The ones that gave me hope. Like when I helped Mrs. McCallan carry in a heavy box after her grocery delivery. She smiled wide, said thank you 3 times, even offered me a slice of banana bread. We stood at the edge of her porch, chatting about her old beagle and how she could never find good avocados anymore. I walked away thinking maybe, just maybe, I was starting to be seen. Or the time Mr. Patel's lawnmower sputtered out and I offered him mine. He gave me a firm handshake, said I saved his Saturday. I figured that was something, a sign that I was part of this place. But when the next barbecue rolled around, he was there, paper plate in hand, beer in the other, laughing it up with everyone else. Never mentioned it. Never even looked my way when I passed by his driveway that week. Same with the Mitchells. I once shoveled their walkway after an early snowstorm. They were out of town, and I figured it was just the neighborly thing to do. I left no note, no name. Just cleared it before sunrise. A week later, Mrs. Mitchell waved at me while checking the mail. That was it. No thank you. No mention of the clean walkway. Just a wave, like I was a face in the background of a movie she barely remembered watching. Still, I stayed polite. Maybe that was the mistake. Because polite turns into forgettable real fast. I started noticing things. Like how conversations would pause when I came around the corner. How the couple's walking dogs would cross the street early, offering a nod without slowing down. How the same people I had helped or chatted with briefly would glance at me at the mailbox, then turn and talk louder to someone else, like I had never been there. It gets in your head after a while. You begin asking yourself stupid questions. Do I look like trouble? Did I say something wrong? Is it how I dress? Is it my job? My face? I work in maintenance for a local school. It is not glamorous, but it is honest work. I keep the place running, patching pipes, swapping light bulbs, resetting the heating system when it goes haywire. I do not wear a tie. I do not drive a new car. But I pay my mortgage and mind my business. Apparently, that is not enough. Maybe they wanted someone flashier. Someone with stories to tell at their wine nights or fantasy football drafts. Maybe I just reminded them of something uncomfortable. Something that did not fit their perfect little picture. Or maybe I was the only one they could safely ignore without consequence. That was the worst part, not knowing. Having no proof, no incident, no reason you could point to and say, this is why. Just year after year of being quietly shut out. And then came the turn. 3 days after that last barbecue, someone knocked on my door. It was a Thursday, late afternoon. Sun just starting to dip behind the Mitchell's maple tree. I was sitting in my garage, tinkering with an old radio that never quite worked right. The kind of project you pick up when you need your hands to stay busy because your thoughts are too loud. Then came the knock. Not the usual soft tap from a delivery guy. This was firm. 3 deliberate knocks that echoed down the hallway like they belonged to someone who did not come by often. I stood still for a second, heart thudding a little harder than it should have. I do not get many visitors. Not unless it is a wrong address or someone selling roof repairs. When I opened the door, it was Ethan Mitchell. That was a name I had not heard spoken to me directly in ever. We had exchanged a few nods in passing. Maybe once shared a chuckle about a broken sprinkler a couple summers ago. But that was it. And yet, here he was, standing on my porch in a faded t-shirt, khaki shorts, and flip-flops, holding a sweaty can of root beer. His smile was tight, forced. "Hey man," he said. Sorry to bug you." I leaned against the frame. "What's up?" He looked past me, like maybe he expected someone else to come to the door. "We've, got a situation." I said nothing. He scratched the back of his neck and gave this half laugh, the kind you use when you are stalling. "So, our generator went out." Silence stretched between us. "Our backup," he added quickly, "for the barbecue setup. We've got another one coming next week, but with the forecast and all, it would be a big help if we could borrow yours. Just for a day or two. I heard you keep one in the garage." There it was. The moment. After years of invisible treatment, closed doors, turned backs, and muffled laughter from across the fence. Here he was. Asking. I did own a generator. A good one. Bought it after a bad storm knocked out power for 3 days. No one had offered help then, either. I just got used to solving things myself. Now they needed it. And not for anything essential. Not for an emergency. Just for another one of their perfectly lit, over-catered, suburb glam events. They wanted to keep the margarita machines running and the backyard fairy lights glowing. I almost said no right then and there. Almost. But something in me paused. I looked at Ethan. Really looked. He did not seem smug. He seemed uncomfortable. Maybe even a little embarrassed. Like this was a favor he never thought he would have to ask, especially for me. That should have made it easier to refuse. But it didn't. I told him I would think about it. Closed the door before he could say anything else. Then I sat back down in the garage. Stared at that old broken radio like it might have answers. Because now I had a decision to make. And it was not just about the generator. I sat there for a long time after he left. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in streaks of orange and rust. I could hear distant barking, the buzz of someone's mower, the faint chime of wind against a backyard chime that had always annoyed me. Normal sounds, peaceful even, but inside me, everything felt off. Because the truth is, I had waited for this. Not the generator thing specifically, but the moment. The moment when they would need something only I had. When the people who spent years pretending I did not exist would have to come to my door, hat in hand. And now that it was here, I did not feel victorious. I felt sick, bitter, because I had spent years lying to myself about this place. Telling myself I was fine being left out, that I preferred solitude, that the quiet was a choice. But deep down, I had wanted in. Not to be the life of the party. Not to be center stage. Just included. Seen. And every summer that passed without a knock, every wave that stopped short of conversation, every side glance that turned into silence, it chipped away at something inside me. Now, they needed me, and I did not know what to do with that. It should have been simple. Say no. Let them sweat. Let their fancy outdoor dinner go dark. Let the bounce house sag. Let the music die. Let them, just once, feel what it was like to be on the outside looking in. But it was not that simple. Because behind all the years of silence, I remembered the small things. Mr. Patel's handshake. Mrs. McCallan's banana bread. That quick chuckle Ethan gave when the sprinkler exploded and sprayed his lawn chairs. The way he looked at me then, it was not mean. It was human. So maybe it was not all calculated exclusion. Maybe some of it was just the natural shape of a neighborhood with circles already drawn. People stick with what they know. Who they know. Maybe I was too quiet. Too distant. Maybe I gave up on trying too soon. Or maybe they just never saw me because they never had to. Until now. That night, I pulled the generator out of the garage, wheeled it onto the driveway, and left it there. No note. No explanation. I figured if they really needed it, they would come back. They always come back when it is convenient. But I did not sleep well. I kept thinking about Ethan's face, and about how sometimes the thing that hurts the most is not the cruelty, it is the indifference. And I had lived in that shadow long enough. By morning, the generator was gone. I looked out and saw the wheel marks cutting across my driveway, a faint trail of dust where it had been. No knock. No thank you. Just silence. I stared at that empty space longer than I should have. The stupid part of me expected a note. Maybe a knock later in the day, someone showing up with a plate of cookies or a handshake, saying, "Appreciate it." Really. Nothing. The barbecue went ahead as planned that weekend. Bigger than ever. Full spread of food, music echoing down the block, string lights shining like a movie set. They even had some kind of outdoor movie screen set up this time. And yeah, powered by my generator. I watched from my window again. Same view, same fence. But this time, it felt different. Because I had made a choice. I gave them the tool they needed. And in doing so, I stopped being just the outsider. I became the unseen reason the party kept going. The shadow holding up their spotlight. And something about that, it gnawed at me. I told myself I was done. Done helping. Done hoping. Then came the second knock. 2 days later. This time it was a woman, Rachel, from 3 houses down. I barely knew her outside of the occasional wave. She always looked like someone with 100 things on her mind. Soccer practice, school pickups, whatever it is suburban moms juggle like acrobats. She was standing on my porch, twisting her car keys in her fingers. She said the generator stopped working. Something about the fuse. And Ethan told her I was the one who had fixed it last time. That stopped me cold. Fixed it? I had never told anyone that. The unit came busted when I bought it secondhand. I had spent 2 weekends rewiring it, piece by piece, just to get it functional. I never brought it up to anyone. Never showed it off. But Ethan knew, which meant he had asked around. Maybe even paid attention. Rachel kept talking, asking if I could take a look before the next storm rolled in. And right then, something clicked. They did not ignore me because I was invisible. They had watched me. Not closely, not openly, but enough to know what I had. What I could do. They just never acknowledged it. Until it served them. Until I became useful. Useful, but still uninvited. That realization burned hotter than I expected. I told Rachel I would look at it tomorrow. She smiled, clearly relieved, and left. But as she walked away, I caught her glancing back once. Like she wanted to say more. Like maybe she knew something I didn't. And that is when the second twist started to take shape, when I noticed the folded slip of paper taped to the inside of my mailbox. It had no return address, just my name. In handwriting I recognized. I stood there in the driveway, the sun sharp on the back of my neck, that folded paper pinched between my fingers. The handwriting stopped me cold, because it was not just familiar, it was personal. It belonged to someone I had not thought about in years. Back when I first moved in, there was a guy named Hal who lived 2 doors down. Mid-40s, military haircut, always wore those old-school white sneakers, and talked like he knew the end of every sentence before you said it. He moved out maybe 4 years ago, sudden, no goodbye. We only spoke a handful of times, but once, in passing, he told me something strange. If they do not know you, they make up stories about you. Just be careful what story they settle on. I never knew what he meant back then. But now, holding that letter, I understood. I unfolded the paper right there by the curb. Inside was a single paragraph. Short. Typed. No signature. But the message was sharp as glass. You should know. Years ago, someone started a rumor about you. Said you were some kind of unstable vet, dishonorably discharged, had a temper. I tried to correct it, but no one wanted to hear it. They liked their version better. That is why they never invited you. Not because of who you are, but because of who they decided you were. I read it twice. Then a third time. My chest tightened. I had never served in the military. Never raised my voice on this street. Never so much as parked the wrong way. But somewhere along the line, someone had planted that story. And they believed it. They had chosen it. Because it was easier than getting to know me. It all started to make sense. The polite distance. The fake smiles. The reason they waved but never stopped to talk. Why I was never on any guest list. Never in any group photo. Never part of the neighborhood. They had written me out of the script from day one. Based on a lie. That night, I sat in my garage again. The letter on the workbench. The generator still sitting outside. I felt a heat in my throat I could not swallow down. Not anger. Something worse. Betrayal. By people I never even knew. By a neighborhood that had decided my worth before I ever had the chance to show it. But the question remained. What was I supposed to do now? Let it go? Expose the truth? Burn it all down? I stared at that letter until the edges blurred. And then, just before midnight, I made a decision. I grabbed the generator, loaded it into my truck, and drove down the street, not to return it, but to tear the fence down in a way they would never forget. I did not make a scene. No yelling, no threats, no spray-painted messages on the sidewalk. I just pulled up to the Mitchell's curb right as the porch lights were going off for the night. Everyone else was asleep, but Ethan's garage door was still cracked open. I could hear the low hum of a shop vac or some kind of power tool. Typical. He was the kind of guy who wore Weekend Warrior like a badge. I killed the engine, left the lights on, and dropped the tailgate. The generator sat there, humming softly. I had spent the last 2 hours rewiring the thing, sabotaging it, really, but in a way no one could trace. It would run beautifully for about an hour, then overheat, blow a fuse, and short the whole damn circuit it was connected to. I wheeled it up the driveway and set it neatly at the edge of the garage, right where he would see it. No note this time. They wanted to use me without ever knowing me? Fine. Let them burn with the power I gave them. As I walked back down the drive, I felt lighter. Not proud, exactly, but awake. Like I had cracked some part of myself open that had been sealed tight for years. Let them talk. Let the lights die mid-party. Let the bounce house deflate in front of 30 screaming kids. Let the music stop mid-chorus while their wine got warm and their perfect little world stuttered. And maybe, just maybe, let them start asking questions. Because that is how it starts, right? One thing goes wrong. Then they start wondering what else they got wrong. Maybe someone remembers how I helped clear the ice off their walkway. Maybe someone else remembers the time I fixed a neighbor's tire in the rain. Maybe one of them even has the guts to say, "Why did we never get to know him?" Or maybe not. Maybe they double down, like most people do when the mirror is too sharp. But either way, I was done carrying the weight of their story about me. They had chosen to believe I was dangerous. So now, they could deal with the consequences of keeping their distance. I climbed back into the truck, hands steady for the first time in a while. But just as I was about to pull away, something caught my eye. A shadow moved near the porch. It was not Ethan. It was someone smaller. Slower. Mrs. McCallan. She was walking barefoot across her lawn, clutching something close to her chest. And she was headed straight toward my truck. I rolled down the window as she approached. Mrs. McCallan looked different in the moonlight. Older than I remembered. But there was a steadiness in her eyes that stopped me from saying anything first. She held out a plastic container. Banana bread. Fresh. Still warm. "I figured you would be up," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "You always are on nights like this." I took the container, my hands suddenly unsure. "Thank you," I muttered. But she did not leave. She looked toward the generator at the end of the Mitchell's driveway. "You rewired it, didn't you?" I froze. She smiled faintly. "I was an electrician's wife for 25 years. I know the sound a rig makes when it is ready to fry." I laughed once, short and bitter. "They earned it." She nodded. "Maybe they did." She sat down on the edge of my truck bed like she had done it 100 times before. "No fear. No hesitation. I never believed what they said about you," she told me. About the discharge, the anger, the bad vibe. That was all from Carla. Carla, I asked. She gestured toward the big red house at the other end of the street. Carla Simmons, HOA board queen. Got nervous when you didn't come to the first few meetings. Said you were too quiet to trust. Started whispering little things. Just enough to spook the others. I blinked, stunned. That's all it took. She turned to me, her eyes clear. In this neighborhood, gossip spreads faster than wildfire. People believe what keeps them comfortable. It is easier than admitting they never tried to know you. I sat in silence for a long time. The container of banana bread weighed heavy in my lap. She reached into her sweater pocket and handed me something else. A small envelope. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten invitation to next summer's barbecue, signed by 8 names. Some of us are done pretending we did not know better, she said. I looked at her, unsure what to feel. Suspicion, gratitude, all of it mixed like oil and water in my chest. I do not need a pity invite, I said finally. You're not getting one, she replied. You're getting a choice. That's more than they gave you before. She stood up, brushed off her skirt, and looked back at the generator. You might want to fix that fuse before someone gets lit up. She paused, then added, or not. Then she walked away, barefoot in the grass, humming a song I could not quite place. I sat there a while longer, staring down the street. Everything was shifting, and I still did not know where I stood in the middle of it. But one thing was clear. People had started to talk. Only this time, the story was changing. I stayed up all night. The invitation sat on the kitchen table, next to the empty banana bread container. I had eaten the whole thing without realizing, each bite dulling the edge of something sharper inside me. By sunrise, I still had not touched the generator. Let it break. Let them wonder. But by noon, curiosity got the better of me. I walked out to the Mitchell's driveway under the hot sun, already hearing voices from the backyard. Laughter, chairs scraping the patio, kids shouting over a sprinkler. Ethan was standing at the side gate, arms crossed, sweat on his brow, staring at the dead generator like it had insulted his family. He saw me coming and perked up. I think something's wrong with it, he said, like that was news. I knelt down, ran a hand across the casing, and flipped open the side panel. Wires were clean. Nothing fried. Just one little breaker flipped the wrong way. I could have fixed it in 5 seconds flat. But I stayed crouched there, silent. Ethan shifted on his feet. Look, I should have said thanks. That was on me. I looked up at him. He scratched the back of his neck. Also, I heard about the rumor. From Carla. I didn't know it was made up. I said nothing. I guess I should have come by sooner. Try to get to know you instead of just listening to the noise. Still, I said nothing. Because this was the moment. The one where I got to choose who I would be. Bitter? Vindictive? Righteous? Or something else? I stood up. Walked past him without a word. Back down the driveway. Toward my house. Let the silence stretch between us like a final wall. Then I stopped. Turned around. I'll fix it, I said. But this is the last time I do something for people who only see me when they need something. His eyes dropped. I continued. Next time, you want my help? Try inviting me before the party starts. I flipped the breaker. The generator hummed to life, steady and clean. I walked home, and for the first time in years, I did not feel invisible. I felt seen. Maybe not by everyone, but by myself. The following week, the neighborhood felt different. People waved longer, slower, like maybe the gesture meant something now. A couple even stopped to talk. Just small things. Weather, lawn fertilizer, the usual suburb nonsense. But their eyes held something new. Recognition. The invitation stayed on my fridge, held up by a cheap magnet shaped like a fishing lure. I saw it every day, but I had not decided whether I would actually go. I was not looking for apologies. Not anymore. Because the truth is, sometimes the respect people deny you in public comes crawling back when they need you most. But here is the catch. How you respond to that moment. That is where the real power lies. You can give them exactly what they expect. Bitterness, silence, a cold shoulder that matches the one they gave you. Or you can show them what strength looks like, what grace looks like. You can remind them that being ignored does not make you weak. It makes you patient. And patience is a weapon most people do not know how to handle. 2 weeks later, another knock came. This time, it was not about a tool or a favor or something broken. It was a boy, maybe 10, shirt 2 sizes too big, holding a flyer in one hand and a popsicle melting in the other. He asked if I wanted to come to the block's end of summer potluck. said they needed help setting up the tables. His mom stood at the edge of the lawn, waving shyly. I looked down at the flyer. Bright colors, balloons, simple handwriting. But my name was there. "We'd love to have you, Mr. Keene." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it had taken so long for them to say something that simple. I told the kid I would think about it. And I did. But that evening, as the sky burned orange again, I pulled out a lawn chair, set it in the driveway, cracked open a cold soda, and just sat there. Let them see me. No fence in the way. No silence. No shame. Because being left out taught me one thing that I will never forget. Belonging is not something you get from a party invite or a polite nod. Belonging is something you claim. And that night, with nothing but the hum of cicadas and the breeze cutting through the heat, I realized. They never kept me out. I just stopped knocking.